Hello and welcome to the first episode of Xpression FM Women's Hour. In this podcast series we'll be discussing and debating women's issues, and in this episode we will be discussing issues of slut shaming and sexualisation of women in the media. I'm Chloe Shaw, and joining me on the discussion panel we have Amy.
Hello.
We have Ailish.
Hi.
And we also have Nicky, who will be joining us a bit later. So we're going to start off, we're going to talk about slut shaming. I'm just going to open it up to the panel. What is the first thing that kind of comes to your mind when you hear the term slut shaming? What do you immediately think of?
Oh, it's horrible, isn't it? It's one of those things that's really difficult because it often comes from friends or people that you know, as well as other people that you're not as close to. And I guess for me, it's sort of that horrible feeling when you just want to be yourself, you just want to have some fun, you just want to live your life, and people come along and they're trying to sort of make you feel like you've done something terribly wrong when actually whatever you've done is probably really normal and everyone's doing it all the time, but people really put you in such a horrible box. And I feel like it comes from quite a historic place as well.
Yeah. The first thing I immediately think of when I think of slut shaming is specifically if you sleeping with people, and the stigma that potentially comes around that, sleeping with multiple people, one night stands, that kind of thing. That's the first thing I think of, which is the most harshly criticised form of slut shaming. But then obviously it's such a big issue where it feeds into everything else, even how you dress, the way you behave. It's not even just about your sexual pursuit.
And there's a massive double standard between men and women, obviously. So if a guy sleeps around, it's still the case that he'd be lauded for it. But if a girl was to sleep around, then she would be deemed a slut or not a nice person. Has anyone ever had any experiences with slut shaming or anything related to how they were dressing on a night out and feeling like you were shamed for wearing something in particular?
I was going to say, I think since coming to university, obviously, the culture is different here. Everyone's a lot more liberal, people have sex a lot more. So I've definitely noticed it a lot more with people choosing to sleep with multiple people and the criticism they face from it. And it isn't just from guys, it is from girls as well. And it's not even that girls necessarily be they're a slut because they've slept with this many people. It's just the kind of tone of general things they say, which is you don't even necessarily realise that it's kind of feeding into the whole dialogue, because I think it's not even necessarily people saying the words they're a slut, they're a whore, whatever. It's just she sleeps with a lot of guys, or it's just stuff like that. It's more subtle things.
I feel as well it's fed in from the people that do really believe that girls that have lots of sex and wear short skirts are sluts. I feel that attitude has spread so easily to the point where people that don't even believe that stuff have that in the back of their mind. It's so subconscious that they then put that attitude out into the world. And I feel it's really difficult as well when it comes to mums and nans, because for me, I find I have a wonderful family, but even there's still attitudes and pressures that, or maybe if my shorts, my skirt's a bit too short or something like that, there's still that sort of my mum might go, oh, that's a bit short, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And she would never ever say that I was a slut or that I was slut shame me, but it's the attitude that
it's almost there's that sense of care, because I feel if I'm ever a parent, I feel that would kind of be my attitude as well, as in, but it's not as in you're slut shaming your daughter or whatever, but I think it's more you just want to kind of protect in that kind of way, because I get the same from my mum. I get that top's a bit low, a bit too much cleavage, your skirt was a bit short, what are you wearing on a night out? And it's just kind of that's a bit short, I wouldn't really wear that, we'll put some tights on with that, but I think that you guys feel the same. Do you think that it's kind of almost perpetuated by this constant fear that we have?
Yeah, definitely. I think clothing is such a subtle part of it, and it's something you don't even realise. If someone says, oh, your skirt's riding up a bit, you're just oh, okay, and then you just put it down, but you don't ever think why is that an issue if my top is a bit low? And I think it even goes back to when you're at school.
Definitely.
You, when you were in year 8, and if your bra strap would be showing, people would especially boys would make such a big deal out of it just from a tiny little bit of
or
a bra strap.
Girls getting told off at school for having their skirt too short. It's one of those things as well. It's where the sexualisation comes in sort of two ways, because women are over sexualised. Things like that do matter, and we do get told off off for doing things like that. But then also we do roll up our skirts and we do other things because we're also aware that that is sexualised. So it's like that really difficult battle between each side.
Yeah, it's like the dichotomy of wanting to appear pretty and feel sexy without seeming to ask for it or invite in this kind of slut shaming, especially from like, well, both men and women who might see you as like, oh, look at how she's dressed, like she's like being like too sexy. There's a really fine line, and it's impossible to tell because everyone has a different opinion about things.
And I think the assumption is that like women do dress a certain way because of how they want to appear to men, which is just not the case. If you choosing what you want to wear on a night out, I could choose to wear something which other people would deem really sexual just because I feel good in it. I want to feel good about myself, not because I have any intention of like, you know, other people finding me attractive. It's just like how I feel about myself. But the assumption is that if you're wearing certain things, like you're a slut.
Playing devil's advocate, just on that point, can we completely argue that we don't dress up for reasons, you know, for competition to be attractive to someone who we might want to be with and like, essentially mate with, if we go back to like evolutionary? And do you think that it's truly for ourselves? Do you think that is ever going to be like a definitive argument? Like maybe it's so subconscious in our minds that we actually, at the end of the day, we all like, it's in our genes that we want to like reproduce, pass on our DNA kind of thing. And the way that we present ourselves, like peacocking basically, to like make ourselves feel good and then to attract that kind of attention.
Yeah, well, I think it can be just for yourself, but I also think that if I think I look good really dressed up, that's because of like beauty standards that have been constructed by societies. I can be maybe innocently just thinking that I look really good in what I'm wearing, but then subconsciously I think I look good because I know that that's like kind of the sexualized image that's in society, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think as well it's normal to want to feel attractive and want to attract other people, and that may be because of beauty standards and it may be because of sexualization and other things, but the fact that we then again feel like we're being judged for them wanting to impress someone else is like, once again, the whole problem in itself. It's like we can never win, you know what I mean? It's either you're not sexy or you're like too sexy, you know what I mean? It's that constant like battle with that.
You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you guys think that a man could ever be slut-shamed? We've been talking a lot about women's issues with slut-shaming. Do you think it's ever possible for a man to be slut-shamed in the same way that a woman would be?
I would say no. I would say a man could be criticised for like the, you know, like for certain things he's done, but I would never use the term slut-shamed because I think like it's such a specific term that describes like the such harsh scrutiny that women go under. So I would never ever use that term to say like something that a guy has gone through. I'd say he could definitely be criticised. I think especially recently, like I'd say it's potentially changed a little bit and there's potentially more balance, but I would say never to the same extent, personally.
Do you agree, Amy?
I think I agree never to the same extent, but I also think that you said we are sort of in a time where that word is sort of chucked about a lot now, and it may be the fact that it is starting to be slightly reclaimed. I don't know how far, but so I think that there is a sense of it can carry over, like over the gender barrier. Like I think when you think about gender being a bit more fluid than it's been viewed in the past, I think it can be. I think that there's definitely probably men out there that have been shamed just in the same way that women are, probably not to the same extent because we have a lot more pressures around us, but it's one of those, it's difficult because it's one of those things that it is a women's problem, but once you start getting too caught up in it's just a women's problem, you are neglecting then some of the males that it will also affect. But it's completely different because the majority of males, like you say, they are like congratulated for like having lots of sex, and it's something that maybe that can also go the other way in that they feel the pressure that they have to be like that, you know. So there's also that as well.
Yeah, I feel like the equivalent term, the term like going around in my head would be like fuckboy. I think that would be like the equivalent of slut shaming, and that maybe that would be criticism from maybe women, like calling a guy who sleeps around or, you know, messing girls around would be equivalent of like fuckboy. But yeah, I completely agree with you in that you have to look at the fact of like, because everything is kind of moving towards a fluidity between genders, like you can, it's because of that you can't really neglect that it is not something impossible for a slut-shaming equivalent of guys. But I also then think that the term slut-shaming is very feminine for historical reasons and why that's been used. To what extent do you guys think that the term slut can actually be reclaimed as something positive. Like, do you guys feel that, so you mentioned, Amy, that it's used a lot more frequently in vocabulary these days. Do you think that is a positive step towards like reclaiming it, or do you still find negative connotations following it around?
I mean, I think it is good that it's like often used now in a lot of a less harsh way, but it's one of those things that it's still, everyone still understands what it means, and the fact that just because we can now joke about it, is that still reclaiming it in a positive way? I don't know, it's just that we're becoming more accepted of being called a slut, or like our friends joking and talking like about sluttiness. It's really difficult, because it's I don't know if it's so negative that it will, I don't know, that just can't be, I don't know.
Yeah, I also think it almost, it doesn't even really help the problem that much, because I think the word slut just kind of scratches the surface of the whole issue of slut shaming. I think people don't actually necessarily use that vocabulary that much anymore, and it is good that people have reclaimed the word, but I don't think it actually affects like the mentality that people have in society. Like, I think people still will think in the same way, but they just won't necessarily think they're a slut, but they'll just
use other words.
Or they'll just think like of the behaviour like associated with being a slut, like they'll criticise it. So I don't even know if it would necessarily, even if it was completely reclaimed, I don't think it would like solve the problem of slut shaming.
Yeah, like another word could easily take its place.
Yeah.
I feel, and that even if there is a reclaiming, there's still a large. It's only depends what community you're in, and where that has been like kind of reclaimed to an extent. Because we were talking a bit earlier about Little Mix's album cover.
It was like all the insults that the press have ever said about them, I think.
Yeah, and they had that all like written all over them, and they were criticised. Like Ailish, you were saying. That, on Good Morning Britain, Piers Morgan was talking about how, in his view, they were using their bodies just to sell records. It's like literally he's completely missing the point of why they did it. The point of it was because they have been sexualized so much in the media. They were reclaiming it back for themselves, so it's like completely negated the point, but also made their point at the same time, the fact that he was criticizing them for this. And then, as we were saying as well, like, you know, so many shirtless men, like so many shirtless musicians. Well, I was thinking like, I don't know, like Justin Bieber's one of his album covers, isn't it? He's like shirtless.
Yeah.
And doubt many people would say that he was using his body to sell records in the same way they would for Little Mix, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I just want to touch upon what you said about like using their, like reclaiming their bodies. Is it not a vicious circle in that through this kind of culture of dressing sexually to feel good, to reclaim our bodies, isn't this kind of creating a vicious circle of making images and reclaiming like more available to criticism and to a part of the male community, which keep the criticism going, keep the kind of perpetuate this slut shaming culture and sexualization?
Yeah, I think it's also like the media is sort of bought into like third wave feminism now, and they're like, oh, okay, we can just say this is a feminist angle but still do all the stuff we were doing before. And I think that's one of the big criticisms of third wave feminism that a lot of people have said, is that when you then look at bands like Little Mix and what they wear on stage and stuff, to some extent it's so empowering, and you think, wow, like they are just being themselves and they're just wearing whatever they want and they shouldn't be criticised for that. But like you say, there comes this stigma then that's like, but why do they have to like have their legs out all the time and things like that? And it's like, that really is a real criticism, I think, and it's like you say, it's a complete vicious circle, and it's going to be really hard to get rid of that, because now that it's like a business thing again, like the media's bought into that again, and so they're going to keep using it. I don't know.
I think there's definitely a sense of the media buying into all this rhetoric with the Me Too movements, the Time's Up movement that has been going on the last 2 years. And I think we saw it last week with the release of the Gillette advert, which then got a lot of criticism, or was perceived to get a lot of criticism from a small minority. And the advertisers and the media are buying into the whole campaign of perceived equality and feminism and stuff like that. But there is actually no real change. Like the stats have come from research that's been going on for over 20 years about women with jobs in film and television and like the roles like director, producer, and the top jobs, seeing what the percentage increase has been from 1998. So there's now 20 years of research, and there was a 3%. increase
That's crazy.
in 20 years. So there's definitely this rhetoric of where it feels like there is change going on, but in actuality there's so little, and even with all this rhetoric there is nothing really in place for these changes to go forward.
And to build on that as well, like with Oscar season coming up, I saw this fact the other day, and it said that in the past 10 years there's only ever been 2 female directors that have been nominated for the Oscars. Like 2 in 10 years. I think there's one for Roma, one of the 2 that's ever been.
Yeah.
And so I think the only 2 were in like the last 2 or 3 years. So before that, there was none.
Do you guys feel personally that there has been any change in attitudes when it comes to being slut shamed? Do you feel safer now than you did when you were a teenager about expressing yourself? Do you think that there has been any change, or do you think that it's kind of stagnated?
I think it's hard to tell if it's been a change in society or just a change in me growing up and coming to university, because I think that in itself is quite freeing. And when you're around other people that are also like feeling empowered and like to be themselves, then you're more like that. Like I know for me it was like secondary school can be a really difficult world, especially with those kind of issues, and like I think a lot of us have faced like bullying or sexualisation as a teenage girl around other teenage boys, and it can be like a really quite scary and quite pressuring environment. So I think once you embrace it and you adjust yourself, it's easier. But I think that's so much easier at university. I think like puberty is such a difficult time to explore all of that, and I don't know if it is any easier right now, just because we're talking about feminism a lot more and we're talking about slut shaming a lot more. I still don't know if that's making much difference to those younger girls.
Yeah, I think when you're at school as well, it's a lot more kind of infantile. Like it'll be like, oh, so this girl kissed this boy at a party, so she's a slut. So it's a lot more recognisable. So I wouldn't say I experience anything like that anymore. Like people say she did this, therefore she is a slut. But it's more of just kind of how it feeds into everyday life. And I think with being sexualised as well, I do think that increases as you get older. Like I don't think that ever leaves you, even when you go into like the working world, and what you wear when you're at work is like as we were saying about like the clothes you wear as well. So I think it just presents itself in different ways as you get older. Yeah, if that makes sense.
I actually came across something kind of difficult the other day that I'm not sure how to deal with. So I'm doing this module in drama, and it's like an applied module. So I'll be going into schools and teaching like year 10 students drama. And one of the things that my teacher said was make sure that you are completely covered up from head to toe, like no low necklines, no short skirts, anything like that. One, because it's like a practical drama lesson, so we will be moving about and stuff. But it's that thing of like, it just made me think back, because it's not that long ago that we were back in secondary school, and it made me think back to it's because I have to cover up, because the possibility that a low neckline, there's like teenage boys there and like they see my boobs, you know what I mean? It's like that that just cannot happen. And it's one of those things that's really difficult, because we all agree that is too revealing and you're in a place of work and it's professional, but it's only because we've been sexualized to the extent that every part of us is so sexual now that like it's just, you have to do that. And it's really made me think, because I was like, still I'm going to a professional job, I'm empowered to be teaching, things like that. That's still the case because of those teenage boys, and that's the exact expression that was used,
And it's the fact that it's now made you conscious of it. So like you're conscious of your sexuality in an environment where like you want to be professional, you just want to do a job where you shouldn't even have to think about that. So it's like making you think about stuff which you shouldn't have to think about.
And it's that distraction thing. And it's like you used to get like all those, like I don't know, just school rules in general, and you see a lot of stuff now that sort of like fights back to that, and they were like, well, maybe stop teaching boys that this is the way we should view women, rather than telling women to change the way they dress and things like that.
Exactly.
It's so ingrained in like subconscious, and now we're becoming conscious of it. It's like our preferences of what we actually wear are skewed by how we may be viewed as like quite a difficult situation to then realise that is this actually my free choice that I have, or is it something that's been affected and moulded by this culture and by everything we view in the media over so many years, and especially like going through puberty. But I just want to ask you guys, was there ever a moment when you were younger where you became aware of the female body being sexualised? Did you see anything on television Was there ever a moment that you thought, wow, that's really weird?
I don't really know about a specific moment, but I guess when I was saying before about like people at school saying stuff about your bra straps, like that really sticks out to me, because I remember at the time being like, it's literally just a tiny bit of material. I also remember at school, I think I was in year 9, and all of the girls in my school wore like the same brand of trousers. They were like quite tight fitting trousers, because like we just didn't want to wear like really baggy trousers, and they got banned, and like you couldn't wear them, like you got sent home from school if you were wearing them. And I was 13, 14, so why, like I remember thinking at the time, like, this is just ridiculous. Why does this affect my education just because I'm wearing tighter fitting trousers instead of loose ones?
It's the complete blaming of us as well. It's the complete blaming of the girls, rather than people actually thinking about why people have these attitudes towards that in the first place. Like, I think for me, it's another trouser thing. Just the fact of wearing trousers in themselves. Like, for me, year 7, I think I had like trousers and skirts. So I didn't always want to wear skirts. I wasn't a fan of tights, you know. So I'd wear the trousers in, and there's only a very few girls that did it. But after a year or so of people making comments about the fact I was wearing trousers rather than a skirt, or not feeling like I was as attractive because I wasn't wearing a skirt, because of sort of pressures that are put on you, I never wore trousers to school ever again. And it's only since I left secondary school that I'll now wear more like trouser suits and stuff, and wear trousers, because it was just like, it's one of those things, it was just awful. And a similar thing as well, I remember this one time I was up in science, and I had like a tinted lip balm on, so it looked like I was maybe like my lips were a bit pink, or I was wearing lipstick or something like that. And like obviously because makeup was always banned at schools, so I went up these stairs, and I remember the science teacher turned around to me and was like, "Why are you wearing lipstick? Like, get that off," sort of thing. And I had to go sort of be like, "Oh, sorry," and wipe it off. But it's just one of those things you just think, why is that? Why that shouldn't be an issue? You know what I mean? And it's not until I got into sixth form and college that was no longer an issue. But there's this weird kind of like attitude at schools with that sort of thing, so it's quite scary.
And I think like the age that people are sexualised is getting younger and younger, and that really scares me. Like I think children, like really young adults, are like, it's way more prevalent that their appearance will be like spoken about, which is just horrible, like the children.
And I definitely think like kids are growing up a lot faster than I did. Like definitely, I've got a younger brother who's 16, and he's already so much more aware of the world than I was at that age. And I see like pictures of girls in like his year in school, and they're all like, I wish I was that good at doing makeup when I was like 16. The kids are like skipping this awkward phase, and I think that maybe that has to do with this really increasing sexualization in the media, which could be perceived as reclaiming the body, but still maybe having a negative effect. Do you guys think that it is essentially negative in that way?
Technology, I think that's one of the main things, because kids are sort of like start like joining Instagram earlier, and they're more exposed to these images of people who are much older than them, so naturally they've gone through puberty, so that they don't have like 10,000 spots or whatever. But kids who are like 14, 15, 16 feel they need to live up to these standards of like 20-something-year-olds. From what I've seen, it's mostly people who are in their late teens or early 20s who are making these videos that these younger people are watching and viewing and thinking, oh my god, this is so cool, this girl's got such great hair, oh my god, she's got such a great body, but she's like 22 and you're 14.
I think in particular with TikTok as well, because I have a 16-year-old brother as well, and so all my experience of that is through him. And he... it's one of those things, the ones I've seen, like a lot of people don't want to show their identity, so like they're wearing like hoodies or like glasses and stuff, but it's actually a lot of the boys that are not showing their faces and a lot of that, and it's always the girls who are, like, do have their hair down, and they're very like prominent in that way. And I think it's more accepted for the guys not to have to worry about the way they look or to hide that, and the girls feeling like they have to live up to some kind of standard. And I think even in such like little apps like that, it's still there, it's everywhere.
Did you guys ever feel a need to project, to some extent, a sexy image as a teenager? Did you ever feel a pressure for that?
I went to a girls' school, so I think for me, in a way that was a really good thing, because I didn't really feel that pressure to like go to school every day looking really good or whatever, because I was like, oh, whatever, like I don't care how you guys see me. Until maybe like sixth form, just because you want to get to your late teens, I guess. That's when even going to a sort of environment where you don't really feel like you're being looked at in a like sexualized way, you kind of feel like you have some sort of standards to live up to just in general, but through reaching like 18, 17.
Ailish, did you ever feel the need?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of sad because I think I've, for as long as I can remember, I've been aware of like maybe not necessarily being sexual, but being like upholding certain beauty standards. I think I've always kind of, you know, since early puberty been aware of that, and then kind of it's like gradually become more of a sexual thing as I've got older. I think to some extent, you know, like being at university, it is like more liberal, but I also think when you reach the age where you start going like clubbing and going out, and I think I personally think more about like what I'm going to be wearing and stuff like that than I did when I was like back at school, since as long as I can remember.
I'd say for me it sort of fluctuated. So like for me it was the opposite. So more of secondary school I felt a pressure, and then I went to sixth form and actually it was way more freeing. Because I went to like a sixth form college, I could just wear whatever I wanted. I was doing the courses I loved, I was with my friends, and it was a lot less, I didn't care as much, and I ended up getting into my first sort of relationships, and so I wasn't really in that kind of world. And then it was since I sort of came to uni and I wasn't in a relationship anymore, and then we started going out clubbing a bit more, because I was 18 quite late, so I sort of in the summer I came to uni sort of pretty much straight away. And I think it's that going out thing once again that brings back that pressure so much, and it's horrible because like you say, a lot of the time you're dressing to empower yourself and because you feel happy in that way, and so what, yeah, maybe you do want to attract other people as well, like once again there shouldn't be a stigma around that, but there is definitely, it can be quite frustrating, like getting ready for nights out and stuff. It can make, like, I know a lot of my friends can get so agitated by the whole process, and they feel like they don't look good enough, like there's always that standard there, or oh, that isn't sexy enough, or I don't like the way like that looks and I don't have anything to wear, and things like that. There's always that constant cycle of pressure.
And it's quite funny because now that you're saying that, there's always that girly panic of, oh, I've got nothing to wear, I'm gonna look awful, like I feel like I look really fat today or something like that. And but these are all like things that we kind of just accept and just deal with when we're preparing to go on a night out, but then that's because of the pressures that are like, you know, put on us by like all these images that are so much on like Instagram and social media that we're just bombarded with constantly. I was thinking of the Kardashians, Kylie Jenner being like so young, and I feel like that's that image, and that it's all over, it's on Snapchat, it's on everywhere, there's just images everywhere that are just bombarding us, and there's just such a pressure. And like I remember non-uniform days in high school being the absolute bane of my existence, because we had so I was in a mixed school, and we had very like regimented uniform, like girls in like knee-length skirts, ties, shirts, jumpers, boys had blazers, very formal. And then when we had like non-uniform days, it would be the biggest stress in the world, and there would be, you know, you could feel people judging what you came into school wearing. I remember there were some girls who were sporty, and so would come into school in like football tops and joggers, and they got absolutely picked on to the extreme by the boys because they didn't look girly, or they didn't like in a way conform to what and you know how a girl should dress, kind of thing. Whereas, you know, I'm still envious of how easy it is for guys to just go out in jeans and a t-shirt and still be considered like that's, you know, that's a night out. You can literally just change your t-shirt and you're ready to go out to the pub or the club or something. And I think it's quite frustrating that there's this sense of effort, and then to an extent I like putting the effort in.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because like getting ready is so fun, and you really love like looking your best and taking nice pictures, but then like subconsciously you know that the only reason you like that is because of you like upholding these like pressures
and
to
like
conform.
It's the fact that we're not really aware that we are functioning under these pressures, and I feel like we're functioning so well within the circumstances to an extent, and it boggles your mind like, the more you think about it, and how much images of women in the media and stuff have affected how we, you know, just live our day-to-day lives.
I think there's a lot as well in like the world of like body positivity and how those movements are starting to really be quite prominent for the first time. And I think there is a way, like if you start to encompass that yourself, and you start to look in the mirror and not criticise, but actually, you know, give yourself a compliment, give yourself a smile, and not care so much about that little bit of extra weight you've put on or whatever, then it can be so empowering. But then you have to, it sort of comes back again to that's just you, that's you doing that for yourself. You're the only person in your world doing that, and it's until everyone, including the media, starts to become a bit more body positive and we've got so far to go in terms of that gender inequality there. Like, I just think there's still so far to go.
I'm becoming more aware of all of this body positivity thing, and it's all very centered around women. But I'm very aware as well, because like there's also this can also be applied to an extent to guys. And as on social media, there's all these, you know, guys who are completely ripped and all muscly, and so to an extent that guys are also dealing with that, although maybe not to an extent that women are. Do you think it's as big as a problem as the pressures that are on guys as well as us?
I don't think it's as big because it hasn't been happening for as long. I think it's, for me, I've noticed it in the rise of social media and the rise of sort of the internet and that sort of accessibility to all those images in just the same way that us as women have access to those. So I think that because it appears more of a recent problem, that I definitely think it's an issue, and I think that it's just going to get as bad the more we let it carry on. But I wouldn't say it's been happening for as long, so I think it's easier to notice it in the guys now because it's a new thing, you know, whereas it's been happening to us for so long.
I do agree it's a problem, but I don't think it's the same extent. And I think an example of this is, like, I saw online someone had drawn a comparison between like 50-year-old female celebrities and 50-year-old male celebrities and the way that they're portrayed in the media. So like magazine covers which feature people like Jennifer Aniston, like Sandra Bullock, like people that are over the age of 50, they're still presented in the same way that they were when they were like 25. They're still like upholding the same beauty standards. You know, they have flawless skin. They just look the same as they did. Whereas men that are over 50, like George Clooney and like Daniel Craig and stuff, they're like, you know, really rugged, like got a beard, grey hair, and that's kind of, it's more of a like rugged handsomeness, which is kind of like attributed to their age, and they're like, you know, silver fox and all this stuff. So like, I think women have the same pressures like constantly, whereas I think it does kind of, I think aging is like something where it's not equal with men and women, like in terms of like beauty standards and sexualisation and stuff like that, which I just thought that was quite interesting, like how men are allowed to age whereas women aren't.
Once you get old and you do try and make a bit more effort, a lot of people like have a go at you for that, you know. There's a lot of, you know, it's like, once again, it's how you can't win.
Are there any instances that you guys can think that were the worst examples of female sexualisation, like in media, like newspapers, like magazines, online?
I mean, this isn't a specific example, but like, you know, this kind of celebrity section of the Daily Mail, all of those articles that are written which are literally just about what a woman was wearing that day, and just the headlines of them, where it's like just the most awful, like cringy headlines, like referring to their legs or something, and the article is literally just about what the woman was wearing. Like there's no context or anything. Like those always shock me.
There's been a lot of controversy recently around, I can't remember which brand it was, but there was a brand saying, with an ad out saying all bodies are beautiful, but then it was a cream to get rid of cellulite, and
was it the L'Oreal one?
Yeah, I think so.
With the tagline was dimples are good on your face but not on your legs or your bum or something.
I thought that was horrific. Like, they're using the body positivity movement to sell their anti-cellulite product, which is ridiculous. Like, if you're saying all bodies are beautiful, then why is there like a contingency to this? Why is it only within the boundaries that you've set just to sell like your cellulite cream? I thought that was really, really ridiculous.
That is appalling. Like going back to what we were saying earlier about like advertisers and like the media jumping on the bandwagon of like on the back of like the Me Too movements and Time's Up campaigns, and then like using them to sell products and to create adverts, like the Gillette advert that will, you know, create a media sensation on social media and stuff, and then basically when there isn't a lot of change going on.
Another thing that isn't really media, but celebrities like Kylie Jenner who appear to snap back really quickly after pregnancy. I have some friends who have like had kids and stuff, and they're always complaining like, oh my god, Kylie Jenner and Cardi B, they've got a 6-pack and she literally delivered, she like had a baby less than a month ago. But I think people forget that these people have Photoshop, and they have like nutritionists and surgeries that sort of help them, that obviously they're not going to advertise. But so they're sort of advertising their last final result within a month of giving birth, but like women who don't have these like options open to them of surgery and professional help and stuff are just seeing that a month on they look better than they did before giving birth, and they feel like failures because they can't like get snap back or whatever really quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, these people literally probably have a team of nutritionists and personal trainers and all of the help in the world to get back down to like have a six-pack and stuff like that. And it's the fact that images are just circulating all the time and just being bombarded. I think that personally I feel like that I've got to the stage and that I only grew up with social media from the age of about 17 onwards, having Instagram. I feel like personally that has meant that I can take a lot of the images with a pinch of salt and realise that it's the way you perform on social media is not necessarily how real life is. Like you have all the Instagram influencer culture where everything is photoshopped and it's basically just edited versions of your life, because basically who wouldn't want to look back on all the best bits of their life and view it as like an audience member, as it would, with ways to make ourselves feel good, but then through that we end up comparing, and it's all through this lens of being sexualised in the media and predominantly through the male gaze.
Yeah, I think Instagram has really changed in recent years, and it's an industry now, like with influencers. Like you don't need to have brand deals and to have advertisements on TV. You can advertise yourself through Instagram, and like Photoshop isn't just coming from billboards like of celebrities. It's literally like everyone every influencer we see on social media. Like when you're just scrolling like in the comfort of your own home, it's like it's a lot more intrusive into our lives than it used to be, and it's I just think it's a lot more irresponsible as well for people to use like Photoshop on social media and not say that they are. Like it's fine to use it, but if you're not telling people, then I personally think that's just irresponsible, because the age that people are going on Instagram now, like my brother's 14, he had Instagram like 2 years ago.
Have you guys seen that video of picture of this model, and it's then put through Photoshop in reverse, and it ends up being they've edited this woman from a slice of pizza. They've literally taken, and it shows
yes, I have seen that. Yeah,
it's the power of Photoshop, and you think this absolutely beautiful woman who would belong on the cover of Vogue or something, and then it's like obviously sped up and it reverses backward, and then you realise that, oh my gosh, this image has been edited from a pizza, and it really shows the power of Photoshop and how distorted everything can be. Do you guys think that Photoshop should be banned for things like for purposes of the media, like newspapers, magazine, online media outlets?
But it's become quite a big like topical debate recently, like Jamila Jamil, she's like a big campaigner for that Photoshop should be banned, because she's experienced it a lot herself, where she's been like whitewashed in advertisements, like she's been photoshopped to the extent where it's like changed her ethnicity. And I think it is a really interesting debate, because banned is quite extreme, and I think in terms of advertising companies, I would say probably I think they have a responsibility to not do that. But in terms of like people using Photoshop on social media, that would be really hard to like implement. And then if it is just your social media account, it's kind of like, where do you draw the line? Because say you only had 200 followers and you were using Photoshop, it's not really going to like negatively impact someone, whereas if you're an influencer with like 50,000 followers, then it could potentially be harmful. So where do you draw the line of like what's irresponsible?
I think when it comes to advertising, there are authorities in place that have rules for advertisers so that they're not misleading their audience, and I think Photoshop is definitely something that misleads people, especially when they're buying into things or buying things literally. And I think for those purposes, I think it makes sense for the authorities to put in some rules, because it is very to the unknowing person, it is very misleading, because you'll think that person actually looked like that on their photo shoot, rather than they look like that but maybe their legs were about half a foot shorter, and their arms were like double the size that they've made them in this picture or whatever. Like they look like an actual human being before they were touched up by Photoshop. But I think when it comes to personal use, it becomes a bit more like grey area, because we don't live in the kind of place that sort of controls people on that kind of small scale level. But I think people should be encouraged to understand that they have a responsibility when they're putting stuff out there to sort of be honest with what it is that they're putting out there, even though of course people like to use social media to like portray themselves as having these perfect lives and everything else. Like, for the everyday person and for celebrities on their personal platforms, it should be encouraged that they understand what they're putting out there.
And I think with Instagram as well, it's not just Photoshop, like it's a wider problem of just that it's fake. Like, people can make their bodies look better just by certain body angles and like lighting and just the kind of pictures people are putting out there, which is a representation of their life, which is just false. So I think Instagram is more problematic than just Photoshop anyway.
So let's move on and talk about the idea of asking for it, which is a very, very charged phrase, and it came up quite recently in the way that, I think it was in Ireland, there was a rape trial going on, and the underwear that the girl was wearing, she was wearing a thong, and that was used as evidence to say, like, sort of justifying the fact that she was raped and that she was asking for it. And then obviously you've had some high profile figures who have very controversially said that Angela Lansbury, she's Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast, and saying that sometimes women are to blame for what they wear and that we should dress to be better safe than sorry. What do you guys think of that? Do you agree that maybe sometimes it is better in this culture that is highly sexualised on Instagram, social media? Do you think that it is better to be safe than sorry to kind of prevent this vicious circle?
I think in terms of maybe personal safety, it's better to be safe than sorry, but then that's horrible in itself, that you have to think about what you're wearing because of safety. And I think that fuels it even more. Like, if you are purposefully not dressing how you want to because you're conscious of these problems, that it's just going to like enhance the problems themselves. So like, I really don't agree with that. I think that's really horrible.
I think it's wrong, like, on all levels, for anyone to tell women or girls to be better safe than sorry. If someone wants to dress in more conservatively of their own volition because that's a decision they've made, then that's their prerogative. But I think people, especially people who have a platform, advocating for that and saying, it's for your own good. How about you spend that same time and energy advocating for men to be taught to not act like animals and to like keep it in their pants? I just don't have any time for any dialogue about women, like women that are victims, and any kind of like blaming or talking about them, because I just think it detracts from the fact we should be talking about why men are doing these things. And it's just, and people think that progress has been made, but progress has not been made. Like, it's still such a horrible, like, sexual harassment and stuff is still such a terrible issue, and any kind of conversations that I had about the victims and what they were wearing is just making the problem even worse. And like the fact that people are even taking what the victim is wearing into consideration suggests that even if you have the intention of saying yes, that suggests you can't change your mind at any given moment. Say you decided to dress in a certain way because you decided you wanted to get laid one night, but then when it came to it you decided you didn't want to, then that's fine. Like, the way you dressed at the beginning of the night is in no way a prediction of how you're going to feel later on. It's just how you felt like dressing and how you felt like looking. It's just like, this is sort of completely detracting from the fact that there have been so many campaigns about sort of consent recently, trying to draw what is a very simple message of yes means yes and no means no home. And I think, like, especially like courts and stuff should not be setting this precedent, especially in today's cultural and political climate. So
finally, do you think that there have been any signs of change in attitudes, or do you guys think that there is still so much more work to do with the movements such as that Me Too, Time's Up, the whole rhetoric that's going around?
I would say with slut shaming, potentially, I think it was kind of what I was saying earlier, like, I think it's less obvious now. It's like slut shaming is less black and white. It's less like, she is a whore because she's done this. But I still think it's a really prevalent issue. It's just we're less conscious of it because it's not like overtly said, which in a way I think is worse. Like, I know we were saying this earlier, but it really does upset me when it's women that are talking about like the sexual acts of other women, and they're not even necessarily condemning them for it, but the kind of negative tone they have, it's stuff like that which I think is still really prevalent, and it's something that it's almost, you can't even really call people out on it, but it's more just kind of the tone and the general attitude than actually like verbally condemning women.
Where would you guys like to see this issue in, say, 10, 20 years' time? Like, what would be the ideal kind of, realistically, do you think that in 20 years' time we will see any change in, do you feel like that we are on track for full progress?
I can say that hopefully in 10, 20 years the words "what were you wearing" will never ever be said ever again. And hopefully things like TikTok and that kind of thing will be less prevalent within society, particularly in like the world of younger people, because it sort of starts when you're in your early mid-teens, where you're starting to hit puberty. That's where your sense of sort of like self-image starts, and hopefully people are like educating their children from a younger age about respect and about like sexism and equality and everything else. So once they've aged in that 10 to 20 years, they will keep those lessons in mind, and people will no longer be saying better safe than sorry. Instead they'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I taught my son to not be an idiot, you know. So hopefully there'll be like a shift with that new generation growing up.
I think that we are making progress in terms of like body positivity and stuff, but as we were saying earlier, it still is a cycle. Like when women try and reclaim their sexuality, then they're open to more criticism about their sexuality. So I hope in 20 years' time the cycle's broken and there's more clear lines between, like, I hope that it's not just a cycle, whereas if you do one thing to help at one cause, you're hindering another cause.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us on this panel. Thank you, Amy, Ailish and Nicky. And join us next time where we'll be discussing why is it feminism and not equalism.